Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday morning to you. Well, here we are Thursday, and appreciate you being with me for morning musings. This will be our last video on the question of the red heifer. Now, we were recently told that, guess what? A red heifer had been born. Oh my goodness. If a red heifer has been born, that must mean, guess what? We're about to see a rebuilt temple. We're about to see a restored Levitical priesthood. We're about to see an altar built in Jerusalem. The end is upon us. We're in the last days. No. I hope that you've been able to grasp the incredible power of the fact that the law of Moses has been done away. If the law of Moses has been done away, then all claims, any claim about any significance, any prophetic significance of a red heifer being born in our day is moot. Discussion over, totally meaningless. Because once again, it is the law of Moses, it is Torah that demanded and commanded the red heifer. There was no command for the red heifer under Adam or Noah or Abraham. So sometimes, dispensationalists talk about, well, you just got to remember there are all these different covenants in the Bible. There was only one covenant that demanded the red heifer. That was the Mosaic covenant, which has been annulled. In order to escape this dilemma, some dispensationalists say, well, yes, the law of Moses has been removed. Dwight Pentecost said, however, that in the millennium, we're going to have a new covenant, and while that new covenant sort of kind of looks like the old, it's actually different. It's astounding to me how people can make such claims. Jesus said in Mark chapter 2, you don't put new cloth on old wineskins or old cloth on new wineskins. You don't do that. And yet, what do the dispensationalists do with the red heifer and the claims about the red heifer? They tell us, well, we get a new covenant in the millennium, and it includes Jesus Christ as King of Kings, but it also includes a literal physical temple in Jerusalem. Where did that mandate come from? Law of Moses. It includes a Levitical and Zadokite priesthood. Where did that law come from? Law of Moses. It includes the sacrifices, animal sacrifices. Where did the laws of those animal sacrifices come from? Law of Moses. Oh, and the feast days will be observed. Where did those feast days come from? The law of Moses. And so virtually everything about this supposed new covenant is taken from the law of Moses, but it's supposedly not the law of Moses. Folks, that doesn't even make good nonsense. And I'm not trying to be harsh or critical, but it doesn't even make good nonsense. If you take virtually every constituent element of the law of Moses from here and you put it over there, then guess what? It's still the law of Moses. Now, we are told that this new covenant has not even been made. Jeremiah chapter 31, I'll make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Jacob, not according to the covenant that I made with them when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, says the Lord. But this is my law, my covenant that I will make with them after those days, says the Lord. I'll put my law in their hearts, I will write it in their minds, and their sins and their iniquities will I remember no more. Folks, you got to catch this. You got to catch the power of this. Do you realize that dispensationalism says that new covenant has not been made? This is staggering. What would the new covenant do? Take away our sin. What does the gospel of Christ, which on the night of his betrayal, he took the cup and he said, take, this is my blood of the new covenant. Well, where did Jesus ever get the idea of a new covenant? He came to confirm the promises made to the fathers. This is my blood of the new covenant, which is shed for many, for the remission of sin. So Jesus died to establish a new covenant that would take away sin, which is exactly what the promise of Jeremiah was all about. Ask yourself this question one more time. If the new covenant has not been made, and if the new covenant will mandate physical circumcision, literal physical temple, Levitical priesthood, and animal sacrifices, what happens to the gospel of Christ? The gospel of Christ rejects physical circumcision as a religious practice. It says, when sins are forgiven, there is no more sacrifice for sin. Hebrews chapter 10, verses 1 to 4. The gospel of Christ says that the church of the living God is the temple of the living God. 2 Corinthians chapter 6, 14 to 16. The new covenant says that every believer is a priest of God to offer up spiritual sacrifices in a spiritual temple as a spiritual priesthood. 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 4 and 5. This is the gospel of Christ. This is the new covenant of Jesus Christ. What happens to that gospel when that ostensible, supposed new covenant is made in order to be sanctified by the ashes of a red heifer? Well, Paul says if we reestablish that which has been taken out of the way, then we destroy the gospel of Christ. If you're circumcised for a religious reason, Christ profits you nothing. The writer of Hebrews says, we have an altar to which those who serve in the temple have no right. Now, wait a minute. Wait a minute. We're told that there's going to be a literal physical altar, and everybody's got to go there. Paul talked about the physical temple, the physical altar, and said we as Christians have our own spiritual altar, and those who serve a physical altar have no right. They have no mandate. They have no commands to serve in this spiritual. You got to be a spiritual priest, a follower of Jesus Christ, to make that kind of spiritual sacrifice. So that by him, therefore, let us offer the sacrifice of praise unto God. That is the fruit of our lips. You know, the sacrifice of praise under the old law, physical sacrifices, animal sacrifices, grain sacrifices, wine sacrifices. Not anymore. Our sacrifice is the sacrifice of our heart, the sacrifice of our lips, the sacrifice of our life. Romans 12, 1 and 2. You need to ask yourself the question, has the new covenant been established? Is it fulfilled or is it future? You know, I've been urging you to get a copy of my book, The End of Torah, or The End of the Law, Torah to Tell Us. If you haven't done that, here's a very special offer. This offer is good only for the month of October. 2018. Okay? If you go to my website and you order the book, The End of the Law, Torah to Telos, this is volume 1, by the way, and you send me a note saying, hey, Don, saw the offer on YouTube or Facebook, I will include free of charge my book, The New Covenant, Fulfilled or Future. I want to tell you, this combo book of books will absolutely shatter any idea that any semblance of the law of Moses remains valid and binding today, or that it will ever be valid and binding in the future, or it destroys the idea that another new covenant, different from, separate from, contrary to the gospel of Christ, the new covenant of Christ, will ever be established. So order The End of the Law, Torah to Telos. I will give you free of charge the new covenant, fulfilled or future. But you got to make a mention that you saw the offer for these 2 books on YouTube or Facebook. Well, thanks for joining me for this morning's Morning Musings. Thank you so much for joining me. Listen, please have a safe weekend, Lord willing. We'll see you on Monday.